Hello, my name is Pat Allen, and we are here today, which is July 20th, 2018, and we're here at the home of John Thoma to do his interview for the Library of Congress. That is done under the auspices of the Cincinnati-Hamilton County Library, headed up by Brian Powers. And first of all, can I call you Jack?
Yes,
Everybody knows you by Jack.
That is correct.
And I've known you for years.
Yep.
And first of all, thank you for letting us come to your home and do your interview. Okay. Our cameraman today is David Gillen from Cincinnati State Community College in Cincinnati, Ohio. So let's start with where and when you were born, Jack.
I was born in Dayton, Ohio on June the 14th, 1924.
What were the names of your parents?
My father's name was Howard, and my mother's name was Elizabeth.
When did they get married, if you remember?
1922.
And what was your father's occupation?
He had automobile repair shops.
Shops. I assume that means he had more than one?
No, he had different ones.
Okay.
He went from actually repairing mainly to body shop work.
Okay.
And it was called Thoma Body Shop.
And what did your mother do? Did she work outside the home at all?
No.
How many brothers and sisters did you have?
I had two brothers, one a twin brother.
What's his name?
William or Bill. And I had another brother, Tom or Thomas.
Are both of your brothers still with us?
No. My twin brother died 40-some years ago.
Sorry to hear that.
Yes.
I've met Tom.
Yes.
And what was Tom's occupation before he retired?
He ran the insurance department for claims for the Buckeye Union Insurance Company for 15 counties.
And where was his home base?
Dayton.
All right. Tell us a little bit about your education. Where did you go to grade school?
I went to grade school at St. Mary's in Dayton on Xenia Avenue. And then I went to Chaminade for 4 years.
At that time, it was an all-boys school, wasn't it?
That is correct.
And when did you graduate from Chaminade?
1942.
Did you work at all while you were in high school?
I did.
What kind of work did you do?
First, I worked at Dell's Camp's Paint and Glass store, stocking shelves. And then I went to Becker's shoe store and sold women's shoes.
And how long did you work in high school before graduation? Did you work your junior year, senior year?
Yes, and after graduation, I worked the entire summer. And then I went to the University of Dayton. And when I was there, I still worked part-time on the weekends selling shoes.
At
Becker's.
Becker's.
Yes.
How long did you go to University of Dayton?
1 year.
What coursework did you take at UD?
I didn't really know, but I kind of thought maybe I'd like to get into pre-med, but I didn't know. But my freshman year, they gave you all the courses they thought you needed.
So why did you only go to UD 1 year?
The Army got me in September of 1943.
What do you mean the Army got you?
Well, my time was running out with the enlisted reserves, and the agreement was they would give me authorization to go to college for 1 year, and then I was going in the Army.
Well, when did you enlist in the enlisted reserve? What year?
In 42, in October of 42.
So as I understand it, then after you enlisted, you were permitted to go to UD for a year, and then after that, you were compelled to be in the service.
That is correct.
And where did you enlist? What when you went in the regular service?
At Fort in Columbus. Fort
Hayes.
Fort Hayes in Columbus.
All right. And after you were drafted after that 1 year, where did you do your boot camp?
My boot camp was at Camp Barkley, Texas, in Abilene.
And how long was that?
12 weeks.
All 12 at Abilene?
Yes.
Then what was your duty?
Then I was sent to Denver, Colorado, Fitzsimmons General Hospital, where I went to school to learn to be an X-ray technician.
How long did that take?
From December of 43 to May of 44. About a 5 months course.
Was that something you chose to do, or is that something you were just picked to do?
I was just picked to do.
So, was that all class work, or did you have some practical
Oh, it was
work?
both, mainly class work, but they showed you how to carry and change cassettes, develop the films. At that time you had to develop, and taught you how to position people for arms, backs, necks, whatever. And it was a very comprehensive course.
How did you like it?
Very well. I really enjoyed it.
And where did you go from Denver?
I came home on furlough. I was here for a while. Then I was sent to Fort Hayes.
Back up in Columbus?
No, not Hayes. I forget the name of it. It was a big camp where they gathered the men gathered replacements to send them overseas. It was in New York. We was there just a short time, and then they put us on the boat, and we went to England.
You remember what the ship was?
Yes, I do. It was the George Washington. It was the one that President Wilson I'm talking about, sailed on and signed the peace treaty in 18.
Wow. How many troops were
We
transported?
We had 6,000 men on the ship and 900 officers.
So a total of 6,900?
Yes.
Where did you go in England? Where did you land?
We landed in Liverpool, and shortly thereafter they took us on down to Bath, Bath.
How long was your trip across the ocean?
10 days.
And did you run into any problems with U-boats?
No, because we were in a convoy.
How big a convoy was it?
I don't remember, but if I were to guess, I would say 10 ships.
All right. And you had no problems?
No.
How were living conditions with 6,000 men and 900 officers?
Well, not the greatest, but I think you got used to it. They had triple-decker bunk beds, and I had the middle, and a guy that was 1 year behind me in high school that I knew real well was on top of me.
All right.
And that helped, knowing somebody on the ship. Then after Bath, they sent us to Bristol, which was really a fantastic town. And I was there, I think, close to a month.
What did you do in Bristol?
Just replacement exercises, KP.
What did you have to do on KP duty?
Oh, peel potatoes mainly. That was the biggest thing.
Do you do that for your wife here at home now?
Oh, no. No, I had enough of it, Pat.
Okay, so you do your 30 days there in Bristol. Then what's your next assignment?
We're getting on the boat to go to France.
Where did you land in France?
Just a minute. I'll think of it, Steve. Pat. What's the name of that big beach over there? Starts with an A.
I can't remember it.
I can't either. Well, let's just skip it. We landed in France, and immediately they took us by by bus or by trucks rather to St. Lo, which was, I think, 12 miles from where we landed.
All right. So this is after D-Day,
That is
obviously.
correct.
And when you got on the trip to St. Lo, what did the countryside look like after the invasion?
Two things. You could either see you could see one place where it was really messed up from shells and fighting and everything, and other places that were not bothered were really pretty. Orchards and flowers and farmland. And we stayed there in St. Lo for, I'm going to say, 2 to 3 weeks. And during that time is when the Army went through Paris. Liberator Paris kept on going. And then I was sent to Etomps, Etomps. That's about 30 miles from Paris. And it was a large replacement camp for France.
When you were in St. Lo, were you part of any particular unit?
No, I was strictly a replacement. Again, doing KP duty, latrine duty, exercises, marches, whatever they had us to do.
When you were in St. Lo, did you have any interaction with any of the citizens, the French citizens?
No, they pretty much kept us under control there. We were not allowed out of the camp.
All right.
And it was a very isolated camp. This wasn't anything like we got into when we went to Etomps.
Okay, so you go to Etomps. You went there by truck.
Yep.
And where did you stay in Etomps?
Well, that was the tank. They had barracks there, and they were fairly decent barracks. And then one day, a sergeant came in and said, "Any of you guys know how to drive trucks?" Well, I had never driven any, but I had driven quite a few Julianne buses, starting at age 14, delivered them for my dad because he made all their repairs. So I put my hand up, and I was selected with about 10 other fellows, and we were going to be taught, and the taught was exactly 1 hour, teaching us how to drive 2.5-ton trucks. And the next morning, we took off, loaded trucks, had tank track on them. We were taking the tank track to Patton. And my first stop was in Nancy. And we were not there very long.
When you say not very long, are you talking hours or days?
No, just hours.
All right.
As soon as we got there, we dropped off the truck, and they put us in another truck and brought us round back to Etomps.
So on the trip up to Nancy, you're hauling tank tracks
Yes.
to repair damaged tanks.
Tank track, yeah. The bombs, the ground bombs would blow these the tracks off of the
Right.
tanks, and that's where we were taking them, the tracks, so they can put them back on tanks.
What did you try to rehab or repair any of the damaged tank treads?
Oh no, we
Yep.
didn't have. They wouldn't let us do anything. Just drive the truck, and get it there, and bring us right on back.
So you went from Nancy right back to Etomps, and
Etomps.
what did you do then? Did you
Well,
turn
we
around
were-
and take another truck?
No, we were strictly replacements, and a few days later, then we took another truck and went to Metz, and that's when I got to Metz. We didn't see any, but there was some bombing going on, and shells. None of the shells were close to us, but sometimes you could see them going through the sky, and that was as close as I got to any battlefields in Europe.
Did they have shelling at night?
Yeah, we
Oh.
did stay. I remember now. We did stay one night in Metz, and there was some shelling. And the next morning, I do remember getting up, and the fellow said, "Here, come out here and take a look." And we did, because in the sky was a P-51 and a German plane fighting. It lasted some time, maybe 5-10 minutes. Which one took off, Pat? I do not know. I do know neither one was shot down. So that day about noon, we left and we came back to Tom's.
Now, the shelling, was that shelling by the Germans or the Americans?
No, it was by both. It was really by both, but mainly by Germans.
All right.
Firing
towards the American lines.
You got it.
About how far would you say you were from the shelling that was going on while you were there?
I would guess anywhere from 5 to 8 miles, maybe 10 at the most, something like that. Because most of it you saw was in the sky.
All right.
Nothing real close.
So when you were delivering these tank treads, were you driving by yourself or did you have a companion?
Nope, drove by myself. And
did you have any problems along the road, or had the mines been taken out?
No, but we went through several towns, and we were told at the beginning, when you get to a town, because of your speed, and if you don't hit the brakes and you shift it down, the muffler will really blow out some noises. So we did that, and unfortunately, young fellows, we just thought it was funny, but it scared a lot of the French people because they thought it were bombs again.
Okay.
But it was something to do.
Just young kids having fun. How old were you back then?
Well,
19 or 20?
I was born in 24, and this was in 44. I was 20.
So 20.
Yes.
What was your rank then while you were driving?
I was a private.
All right.
Yeah. So then I was in Tom's for a week or so, and one day a sergeant came in and said, "Thoma?" And I said, "Yes." He said, "Get dressed." I said, "Why?" He said, "You're going to Paris." I said, "To Paris?" He said, "Yep." And I said, "Where?" He said, "Well, you'll find out." So they didn't put me in a truck, they put me in a vehicle. Like I say, it was about 30 miles. Pardon me, and went to the 108th General Hospital, which I found out was the largest American European hospital. I think there was about 600 to 700 people there working, nurses, doctors, x-ray technicians, lab technicians. The French started building this hospital in 1938, and they never got it completed, and the Germans did get it completed when they occupied Paris.
Well, before we go on with Paris, what happened to your buddy that had gone to high school with you when you got to England? Did he stay in your replacement group?
He was sent to Italy.
All right.
And
Okay.
Well, he wasn't injured or hurt because I had a lot of business to do with him when the war was over.
Well, good. All right, let's go back to Paris. Sorry, I interrupted your train of thought. You're back in Paris at the big hospital.
Yep. And we had 11 X-ray technicians, so that goes to show you it was a good-sized hospital. 3 radiologists, and the colonel that was also a radiologist, but he was in charge of all of us. And they taught us right in the beginning, which we knew, but they were bringing us up to date, how to carry cassettes, how to load them, how to unload them, how to develop the pictures, positioning. And it didn't take long to learn positioning because most of the people came in, well, not most, but a lot of them either had shot up arms or legs or something. And the main thing that we had, I was there about 2 weeks, and the Army decided that they want all the WACs to have chest x-rays because there was a slight outbreak of tuberculosis. So we had the honor of chest x-ray at 2,100 WACs.
And
And
were you in part of that?
I sure was. The WACs were in a hallway in line, and they had their WACs MPs, and of course they had to take their dog tags off and strip down to the waist, and they gave them gowns. And about 75% of them put the gowns on, 25% didn't. They just came in bare right up to the cassette. Didn't bother them in the least.
Didn't bother them and didn't bother you.
Yes, it did. In fact, the one said, "Have you ever seen any prettier?" And I said, "I don't think so." He said, "I don't think you will either." Just teasing. Of course, typical whack.
Were they fun though to talk with?
Oh yeah, yeah. They were always jabbering and something, and nothing like what happened about 3 weeks after that. The Battle of the Bulge was over, and there were 1,900 injured came in by train to Paris. Now, not all of them came to our hospital. We probably got about 400 or 500, and the other ones were sent to First General. Where that was, I do not know, but the only thing I knew that they were not busy and they could handle more. And we got some pretty bad ones. We got several of them that have been shot in the brain, mainly for one reason. We had supposedly the best brain surgeon in Europe. I do not know if that was true or not, but I do know that he did a lot of brain surgery, and everybody seemed to think the world knew of him.
Well, did you have anything more than just a passing conversation with any of the injured soldiers that came in?
If they were, I say, Copus Menace, yeah, they really talk and tell you about they shouldn't have done this, or they should have seen that lion mine, and maybe they had a foot blown off or something, and we were x-raying the stump, different, things like that. But very nice fellows, and we would take turns on our work. For 3 days, I would do nothing but carry cassettes from the dark room to the x-ray machine. 3 days after that, I would do nothing but work in the dark room and develop the films. 3 days after that, I would be working on positioning. And then 3 days after that, I would be working with the paperwork, getting people their names, what had to be done, etc. As a consequence, I got too much radiation, and I had to take off 30 days. They would not allow me in the x-ray department. They detected it. You've seen these little teeth x-rays. We carry them in our pockets, and mine turned completely black from too much radiation. And after 30 days, it was cleaned up, and they put me back to work, and I worked. Fortunately, this was the only place I had in the Army that had 24-hour leave. You never had to check in, you never had to check out. You could come and go 24 hours a day, so I would say 3 or 4 nights a week. The hospital was just two. The women will answer that. Just know a little bit about it. The hospital was only 2 stops from downtown Paris, from the Champs-Élysées. And it was very easy for us to get down there. Of course, being young fellows, we'd go down and always try a different place. But the biggest thing you had over there was not not beer, it was wine. They drank wine all the time. Even some of our officers were drinking wine for breakfast because the French did, and they thought it was good.
What kind of shape was Paris in? Had the Germans left it in good condition?
Positively great, Pat. Positively great. They didn't, as far as I could see, maybe they had done a lot of damage and got it repaired. I don't know how they could have that fast, but it did not look like the Germans had hardly done anything wrong in Paris.
Okay.
And of course, we always went on the Champs-Élysées and some of the. And of course, when I was there, I went to the cathedral, naturally, the cathedral, went to the Louvre, which was positively great. We did a lot of sightseeing, and
Well, at the Louvre, you hear and you read a lot about how the Germans stole a lot of art.
that is correct.
Was there a lot of art missing from the Louvre?
Pat, I don't know, because I didn't know that much about it. But I would say it didn't look like it to me because there wasn't a vacant spot on the walls.
All right.
But I understand what they stole was before they got there.
Okay.
Now, I don't know. I don't know what the Germans did.
Now you say you went to the cathedral. Was that Notre Dame
The
Cathedral?
Notre Dame Cathedral, went there. Well, I got so I was actually going there on Sunday for Mass.
All right.
And it was very something you've never seen until you got to the Vatican.
Was Mass said in English or French?
French. But they had an interpreter up there. Not that much. English, not that much, but being Catholic, you should know it. You should know the Mass and what's going on, but he would help on a few things, especially on the Gospel and the Epistle and the Gospel.
Well, back in, well, you're a little older than I am, but I remember Mass used to be always said in Latin.
That's right.
And they did that except for the sermons and whatnot.
Oh, that's right.
Well, when you were spending 3 days positioning soldiers, what were your shift hours? Was it an 8-hour shift, 24 hours, 12?
We came on about 8 in the morning and we were finished at 3.
All right.
I forget one other thing. Once a month I had to serve 3 days night duty. They had 2 x-ray technicians on for night duty just in case of an emergency. And we had very few of them, I think maybe a couple at all the time that I was on night duty.
On average, when you were in the hospital doing your positioning, this is after the Battle of the Bulge, how many fellows were you x-raying on your shift? Would it be dozens or hundreds?
No. Pat, I would say a normal day, if we didn't have the Battle of the Bulge or the women being x-rayed, we would do anywhere from 15 to 20 each shift from 8 to 3.
Well, then when they brought those soldiers in from the Battle of the Bulge, what increase did you have?
We worked 72 hours without eating or sleeping.
So you had to work 72 hours straight?
Yes, we all did. It was really something. A majority of those patients, it was horrible to look at, were on stretchers. They couldn't walk. Very few. They had a few in a wheelchair, but most all of them that we worked on were on stretchers. If we it took several of us at times to help get them off of there, to put them on this table that was damaged, a bucky table, as they say, because of inside damage from either shrapnel, bullets, whatever.
That was a special x-ray table, and as I understand from talking to you before, that was the only one in Europe.
That is correct.
And they would use that for kidneys and
gallbladders. It was really great in finding if there was gallbladder trouble. And you'd be surprised how many soldiers were. The fellow that I replaced, he came back to Wyoming. He had a bleeding gallbladder that they couldn't stop, so they sent him back to the States for operation instead of doing it over there. But it was very good on detecting internal. It also got into the lungs. It depended on what you were trying to x-ray, but what it did, on a regular x-ray, when you take it for a chest x-ray, sometimes there can be a blur or a slight speck of light. This would block all that out because it went back and forth, shifted back and forth. The table did. Until Mr. Patton got there.
Well, I'll ask you about that
Pardon me.
in a minute. But did you have any? And this may be something I shouldn't ask you, but I'm going to ask you anyway. Did you have any of these fellows that were all shot up die on you when you were positioning them on the table?
No. Pardon me. I can remember a couple of them getting too bad, and they took them out of our department right away. Probably upstairs, downstairs. Took them someplace, but got them out of our room, and we didn't do any more X-raying.
Well, I understand that you were on the crew that did an X-ray of Eisenhower.
Yep.
And what was the occasion for you X-raying Eisenhower?
I don't know what it was, Pat, but I do know one thing. That was my day carrying cassettes. And I saw him, I talked to him. He said, "Hi, soldier." I said, "Hi, General." And that was it. And I was carrying this cassette business. They don't have that anymore,
right?
As you know. And they weighed about, I don't know, I would say they weighed 18 to 20 pounds because they were all lead. They were heavy.
Uh-huh.
And we'd put them up in the frames. And that wasn't easy. Well, the first 25 would be easy. But the next 100, your arms got so damn bad, you just didn't think you were going to make it. But anyway, that's beside the point.
Well, did you know in advance that Eisenhower was coming in? Was the word out, "Oh, here comes General Eisenhower"?
No. And I don't think he had anything real serious wrong with him, but I think it was like a checkup or something.
All right.
But we did know on Patton. We were informed about 2 days in advance or 3 that Patton was coming in. I forget what his trouble was, but I'm pretty sure, I'm almost positive, it was leg trouble.
All right. So what was the atmosphere like when it was announced that Patton was coming in to be X-rayed?
Oh, we got the place cleaned up. No, I'm only kidding. It was always cleaned up because it was always subject to inspection. But we kind of made sure that we kept everything in order.
Uh-huh. Well, tell us about the experience with General Patton.
Well, he came in. I remember that was my day when he came in to do X-ray work. But they had a sergeant there that was really top position man, top X-ray man, was going to do it, and he wanted me there in case he needed my help. So when Patton came in, he just had his belt on with his 2 guns and unlocked that thing and just took it out and pitched it on the table. And that's when my Colonel Ledoux, who was in charge of the X-ray department, really started and raised hell with Patton. That's the only time I've ever seen a colonel eat a general's ass out. And it was a good one, too. In fact, he told him, and I stood right there and listened to him, "If my table is broken and I'm the only one in Europe, I'm reporting you to Congress. I'm reporting you to the President of the United States." And Patton couldn't apologize enough. I don't think he had tears in his eyes, but he was really sorry that he did that. But I got to give the man credit. He didn't know any better. He didn't know what the table was.
Right.
It was a table. If you came in here and you wouldn't have put something on that table there, you wouldn't know if it was an X-ray table, would you? So anyway, it was not broken. Thank the Lord.
Right. So Patton had to eat some humble pie then.
Yes, he sure did, and he couldn't apologize enough to the colonel.
So is that one of your more memorable experiences with the higher-ups in the military?
Yeah, I think so. Eisenhower, no. I'm trying to remember who the Secretary of State was. We X-rayed him because he was really having gallbladder trouble. But it doesn't, and I remember helping positioning him, but I can't remember his name, Pat.
Well, let me ask you, during your work there at the hospital, did you have occasion to x-ray any of the French soldiers or French
No.
citizens?
Nope,
Any Germans?
nope, nope, nope. We were strictly American. I think the first General Hospital is the one that x-rayed the Germans. Um, in case there was problems with the soldiers that were in a POW camp. But no, our camp was strictly American soldiers.
Well, how long were you at that hospital?
I was there until, was it October or November of 1945. And one day the officer came in and said, Thoma, I said, yes. He said, get packed. And I said, why? He said, because you're going back to the States. I said, why? He said, well, didn't you have a knee operation? Which I forgot to tell you. I banged it up a little bit in one of those trips on the instrument panel. And it was bothering me. And what it turned out to be was a couple bone chips in there, and they kept growing. So if I couldn't bend my leg, I'd lay on my side with my leg on my side, right down on the floor, go up and down like this, and it'd get out of the bending, the joint part. So we went from Paris to the Azores. Didn't spend much time there. I'm saying 3 hours, 4 hours. I have no idea for time. That's 70 years ago, Pat. But from the Azores, I know we flew to Newfoundland. And then from Newfoundland, same way, about 3-4 hours. And the plane was a C-54. That was the big one. That was the 4-engine. The C-47 was the 2, which I flew into quite a few times. But anyway, they fed us. Everybody sat sideways. You didn't have your seats like the way down. And just a minute. Okay. And they fed us pretty good. They had some help on there. I think there were a couple of women, one man, plus the pilot, the co-pilot, navigator. And
Do you have parachutes on?
nope. We had them there, and they had them behind us. In fact, they were like a pillow. And told us in the beginning, if we tell you got to put a parachute on, immediately get your arms in there. So we flew then from Newfoundland to New York. And I can't remember the name of the airport, but it was not it's not in existence now. It was one of the main airports in New York. LaGuardia replaced it.
Okay.
I was there but a short time, didn't even stay overnight, and they flew me from there to Cambridge, Ohio. And it took me, they flew me to
Pittsburgh or Akron?
no, 20 miles from Cambridge in Ohio.
Zanesville?
Zanesville, the airport there. Put me in a vehicle, and then took me to Cambridge, Ohio. And that's when I was at Fletcher General Hospital, which is no longer in existence as we know. There they checked me out very carefully, and they decided they were going to operate on me. And a couple of days later they did, and they went in, the doctor went in and took out the 2 little bone chips. And they were very small. Main thing I didn't like about that, but I didn't know any better, I was bedfast 10 days. Now every hour or two they take this weight, it was a weight on you, stripping to pulling your leg out. They take that off and get you on your feet, and just for a short time, then put you back in bed. And this went on for 10 days. And then I went into therapy. And after about a few more days, then they put me on furlough. And I came home,
Back to Dayton?
Yep, came back to Dayton. And meanwhile, well, it was actually more than 10 days. It was about a month that I was in furlough before I was said I'll be back on vacation. And I came back to Dayton every weekend because a fellow was from Dayton, was there, and he by the name of Andy Fredericks, who later on worked for White Allen Chevrolet, and I could ride with him. Came back here, went back to the hospital, there a while, and then they gave me another 45-day furlough. That was my overseas. They sent me to Indianapolis first, had me checked out mentally. I think we had to take another test, similar to the Army test that you take. I came out, and then I came home, and I was here only about a week, and I got a call and a notice to report to Fort Sam Houston, San Antonio, Texas. So I went down there, spent about 2-3 weeks there, nothing to do, laying out in the sun, suntan and beautiful. Pass anytime you wanted, went downtown. At that time, I think I may have told you, and I remember because I called on it, San Antonio, Texas was only 92,000 people.
Uh-huh.
And the main attraction was the river.
Right.
I went down there about every other day. You didn't have anything to do. So on February 1, 1946, they discharged me from the Army.
Well, when you were in San Antonio, was the Alamo open for public?
Yes. I apologize. I meant to bring that up too. I was there 2 or 3 times.
And being Catholic, did you go to any of the missions along the trail there?
No, because they were out too far. We did not have transportation.
Okay. Well, let's talk a little bit about some of your decorations. I see you've got the American Theater Campaign Medal. And what was that for? Just being in Europe?
No. That, in 1917, my outfit that I was with, the medical outfit, they were awarded by the French government, a citation for taking care of injured soldiers on the battlefield, and a lot of them the French soldiers. It was a patch on your arm. And when I joined that hospital group, the 108th General, immediately I was given a patch, and a woman sewed them on. I had two jackets, I think, and we had to wear that all the while we were there. That was an agreement by the United States government and the French government that we would wear that decoration.
All right. And you also had the EAME Campaign Medal with 2 bronze stars.
I have no idea what that was for, I'll be truthful.
What'd you get your bronze stars for?
That's what I wonder. I really wonder, Pat.
You had a good conduct medal, so you couldn't have been fooling around
No.
too much.
No, I just wonder if those were because of going up into the...
Up the Mets?
Yes, and the Army, and Mets, Nancy and Mets. That's all I could figure out when they gave it to me. But when they gave me that, I was so happy to get out of the service. I didn't examine and ask any questions.
And we're looking here at your DD-214.
Mm-hmm.
Meritorious Unit Award. What was that for?
I have no idea on that either, unless it was for the hospital work. I know we did get an award when I was there, but what it was for, I don't really remember.
You had a victory medal.
Yeah.
All the soldiers get a victory medal.
Yes.
After the war.
Yes.
Then you had 1 service stripe.
That was 4 years. I went in September, you remember,
Yeah.
of 42, and did not come out until February of 46.
Right.
So it was better than the 3 years. So that was the stripe. Every 3 years you got a stripe.
And you had 2 overseas service bars. You know what those were for?
No. Oh, I do know. Well, I imagine one could be, well, I don't know why we'd get one for England, but one for France. Pardon me.
Did you spend much time in England at any time after you arrived there in Liverpool?
No.
I know you went to
It,
Bath and you went to Bristol, but did you have any downtime there where you could do any sightseeing?
very little. They wouldn't let us out of camp.
All right.
It was a replacement camp and pretty darn strict. In fact, the matter is, I didn't reply to, I mean, mention it. When I was in Bristol, they had me do guard duty, and I was a medic. And this sergeant came in and he said, "Do you know how to shoot a gun?" And I said, "No, I don't." It was a shotgun. That's what he had. Oh, he said there's nothing to it. He cocked it, shot the son of a bitch, pardon my English, and you should have seen the hole he blew in the ceiling of the building I was in. So that's the way you do it. Just shoot him. I said, all right, thanks. He handed me the gun, and I didn't even realize it was that heavy. Well, it was not really that heavy, but I had a couple revolvers in my hands in my days, but never a big shotgun. So, no, they kept us pretty much under control in all replacement camps, including ETOMS. We had to get a pass to get out of it. We didn't have any trouble, but we had to get a pass to get out of ETOMS, and we had to be in by, I think, 2 in the morning when we were in France.
Now, when you went into Paris, did you have any interaction with the French citizens?
Oh, yeah.
How did they treat you?
Oh, terrific, wonderful. Fact of the matter is, I think I got kissed about 700 times on May 5 when the treaty was signed on the Champs-Élysées.
Of course, you objected to that.
All the way home. All the way home.
Did you have any French food in
Yes.
town? How did you like that?
Wonderful. We would buy their loaves of bread like this when we were hungry. 25 cents. Just go down the street eating bread. Their bread was, wonderful. We had a lot of French food. Well, we wanted to get away from the GI food.
Did you have you been back to France at all?
Oh, yes. 3 times.
3 times?
Yes.
What was the purpose of your return?
Just visiting. Been to England 4 times.
Well,
Been to Europe 11.
were you visiting anybody you had gotten to know during service or during the war?
Nope. But in England, I visited Mary Jo's cousin. In fact, we lived with him for a week.
Was her cousin? Did her cousin live there during the war?
No. He's just wasn't as old as Mary. He was about 70 now, but at that time he was teaching school outside of London.
Okay, when you went to visit him?
Yeah.
All right, well, you mentioned Mary Jo. Let's talk about your family. Where did you meet Mary Jo?
At Ohio State, went in to get my teeth cleaned, and she was studying to be a dental hygienist.
And how long did you begin to date her after you got your teeth cleaned?
Oh, about a week or so later, I talked to her, and we met. She was in a very strict dormitory up there, what I guess that's what you call it, in Neal Hall. The girls had to be in at 9 o'clock at night. And on the weekend, one night they got out until 11:30. So she agreed to meet with me at the Heidelberg, which was across the street, and have a beer, and that's all she had. And we did that a couple of times. Then she graduated, and she went to Cleveland and worked for a dentist up there as a dental hygienist. And it was about a year, and maybe once a month we'd talk on the phone. And one time she said, "Why don't you come up and visit me? I'm lonely." I said, "All right." Because, that time, 1949, traveling was altogether, 1948 for her, traveling was altogether different than now. So she wasn't leaving Cleveland and going down to Logan, Ohio to visit her parents. So I went up and visited with her. And then She was there several more months, and then one day she called me and said, I'm going back to Logan. Doctor, I don't know his name, so-and-so, needs a dental hygienist, and I'm going to work for him. So she went to Logan, and then about every 2 weeks or every 3, I'd go to Logan and see her and stay at her mother's house, at Mary Jo's house.
So you'd been out of the service for a couple of years before you met her.
Oh, yeah. I got out of the service in February 46,
46, yeah.
and I met Mary Jo. Well, Pat, she graduated in June of 46. So, yeah. A couple years is right.
So when you went into the service, did you have a girlfriend that you left behind?
No. Didn't have any coming out either.
All right. Okay, so when did you and Mary Jo get married?
We got married on April 29, 1950, in Logan, Ohio, at St. John's Church.
And what brought you to Dayton?
I had to work. I was working here.
Okay, what were you doing?
I was an insurance adjuster for the Travelers Insurance Company.
When did you start that?
In August of 1949. I graduated from state in June of 49, and I went to work for Travelers in August of 49.
What was your territory?
3 counties, Greene, Clark, and Montgomery.
So when you got married, you moved back here to Dayton, and you were working. Did Mary Jo get a job?
She married that was another thing which I forgot to tell you. She got a job as the head dental hygienist at the Veterans Administration.
Here in Dayton?
Yes.
And how long did she do that?
Well, prior to that, when she was in Logan, before we got married, she called me and wanted to know if I knew where she could get a place to live over here with some old woman or any place that would be proper for her, because working out the VA. And I found her a place over on the East End, and that was about 4 months or something. And then we bought a house. So
Do you have children?
we had 3 children. We had Steve in 52, Jim in 53, no, in 55, pardon me, 52, 55, and then Tim in 58.
And are they all living currently?
Tim died 19 years ago.
And I'm sorry to hear that. What happened to Tim?
He had an aneurysm,
Oh gosh.
and he lived 3.5 years at St. Leonard's Nursing Home.
Okay. So did you retire from the insurance business?
After 55 years.
Always with the same company?
No. I was with the Travelers 2 years. Then I went with Mendenhall Adjustment Service. We were independent adjusters. We represented about 80 companies, just small stuff. And I was with them until 55. And then I went to work with Pottinger. He wanted to set up a claim department with the understanding that I would also get my license and sell insurance when I was not doing claims, which I did. And I was with Pottinger from 1955 until 2005 when I retired.
So,
2004, I'm sorry, Pat.
So were you selling insurance when you met my father down in New Lexington?
That is correct. In fact, I did not have much work to do in the insurance adjusting business. We had several big accounts where I'd get claims like Shook Construction Company. Their jobs, big jobs that get vandalized or different things. Nothing really of any consequence. And I spent a lot of time, and I built up the largest book of business in the agency. At one time I had 81 health spas insured. All the way from Alaska to Hawaii.
Oh, really?
Yes.
Did you do a lot of traveling then doing that?
Yeah, but not to. I've been in Alaska several times, but not for that. My main thing was Michigan, I had to go to Kalamazoo and Grand Rapids.
Why did your job take you up there so frequently?
Well, they had several um, health spas up there. My main office where I really had to go once a month was Toledo. That was the main office. And the other two places were Grand Rapids and Kalamazoo. Big branches, and they oversaw, I guess that's right, all the health spas in different areas.
What was your rank when you were discharged?
T5,
And what's that the equivalent of?
a corporal.
All right. Have you attended any reunions for any of the replacement fellas?
No,
Any military reunions at all?
no. The entire outfit, the 108th General Hospital that I was with, the entire outfit was made up of two states, Illinois and Iowa. There was not one single person. Now, I shouldn't say this, but out of 600 or 700, there may have been somebody from Ohio. I don't know. But for the X-ray department, let me put it that way, everyone was from either Illinois or Iowa. I got real familiar with one of my friends there, and he lived in Chicago. And after I came out of the service, before I went to work for the Travelers, a couple of weekends I went up to Chicago with him. But his health was failing, and I didn't go anymore.
Uh-huh. I don't know how much time we have left, but tell me about grandchildren. Do you have grandchildren?
Yes,
How
I
many?
have 5 granddaughters
No
And-
grandsons.
and 5 great-grandsons. No grandsons, 5 great-grandsons.
And what is Steve working? Your oldest boy?
Yes, we own real estate, and he does collections.
All right. And your youngest, what does
Jim,
Jim do?
he's retired. He worked for 28 years for Boeing. Well, he was in the Army and the Navy, 17 years in the service. Then he served 28 years with Boeing, and he retired a year ago.
What branch of the service was he in?
He was in the Air Force first, and then let me backtrack. He was in the Navy first. Came out, was in the reserves, then he went in the Air Force for 4.5 years.
How long ago was that?
He got out. Well, Pat.
Well, my point would be, was he in Vietnam? Was he in service during Vietnam?
Oh yeah, was really overseas. A lot of Navy duty. He was pretty close to some of the stuff that was going on. But in the Air Force, the main thing, he was he was in Tokyo, and I was over there, so I visited him for 3 days. Then we came home. Shortly thereafter, he was sent to Bremerton and got discharged. And his cousin was living in Seattle with her dad and family, and she was working for Boeing, and said to him that they were really looking for help. So Jim applied. He was hired immediately, $9.25 an hour, and they put him to work on the wings of the 47s, the
C-47?
the C-47, which is the same as the #1 spot that the president flies.
Okay.
In fact, the matter is, Jim worked on the wings of both of those planes.
Oh, wow.
Yeah. So, yeah, he got married, had 2 children, and his wife, they're divorced. He doesn't know where she is.
Well,
One girl lives in Seattle. She worked for Microsoft, and I don't know who she works for now. And the other one works in Honduras,
okay.
and with the children.
Well, when your son was in the Navy, how long was he over in the area of Vietnam?
He was Vietnam was in the army,
Okay,
and then he ended up in Seoul. He was in Seoul first, and then they shipped him up to Tokyo.
okay.
He was in Seoul, I think, a year and a half or two.
Well, when he was in the Army, then was he on the ground in
No,
Vietnam?
he was. I didn't. I said if I said Army, I meant Air Force. He was in the Air Force.
What did he do in the Air Force? Was he a pilot?
No, no, no,
Okay,
no. I don't really know. I I know my twin brother was a mechanic for the Marines when he was in the Air Force back in 42 and 43. Or
and where was
43.
he stationed?
Guam. But that was after the war.
Okay. Well, when you were in Tokyo, did you visit either of the A-bomb sites?
Oh yeah, Pat, we'd been in Tokyo several times before. So we didn't know Tokyo, but it wasn't anything new.
What kind of an impression did you have of those two sites?
Love it, love it. In fact, one of the best things I had, that was then. Now things have changed. Do you know that? We rode the bullet train from Tokyo to Nagasaki, 160 mile an hour. That was unheard of then, with the exception of in Tokyo. Japan. Pardon me. So
Let me take you back to France for a moment. I was thinking about it and forgot to ask you. Were you aware that the Battle of the Bulge was going on while it was going on?
oh yes,
And what was the feeling in the area where you were?
that if I remember, and I don't like putting it this way, but if I recall, the GIs were talking about we were getting our asses beaten pretty badly.
Uh-huh.
That's all. I can't remember if it was anything further than that, but I do remember some of them really being worried and complaining about. And we really took a licking there.
Right. And was the feeling that Patton kind of saved the day when he got up there?
I don't think Patton was ever in the Battle of the Bulge.
He didn't have anything to do
No,
with
he was in Germany.
Okay.
The Battle of the Bulge was over more towards Belgium.
Is there anything else that you can remember that we haven't talked about that might be of
No.
interest to your relatives or the public that might want to?
You got my complete history. Now I'm going to give you a bill.
All right. I'll send it on to the Library of Congress.
All right.
Well, let me thank you for
All right, Pat.
your interview.
Thank you.
And let me thank you for your service.
Okay. Okay.